As dawn broke over the North African desert in January 1942, the sky above El Alamein turned into a blazing battlefield. Squadron Leader Andrew Nicky Barr, an Australian ace renowned for his devilish bravery, led his P-40 Kittyhawk into combat against overwhelming Axis forces. Known as Old Nick, Barr's reputation for daring maneuvers and relentless courage made him both feared and respected. This documentary follows Barr's harrowing journey from fearless fighter pilot to captured prisoner, and ultimately to an inspiring symbol of resilience. His story is one of valor, survival, and defiance in the face of insurmountable odds.
The skies over El Alamein erupted in fierce combat on January 9, 1942. Squadron Leader Andrew Nicky Barr, an Australian ace from No. 3 Squadron, RAF, was no stranger to this kind of intensity. With 8 confirmed kills to his name, Barr had already proven himself a master of the skies. Nicknamed Old Nick, a devilish moniker earned for his audacious flying tactics and fearless demeanor, Barr's reputation for striking fear into his enemies was known far beyond the Allied lines. He was in his element, leading a formation of P-40 Kittyhawks into the heart of Axis-controlled territory in North Africa. As the Allied bombers approached their target, Barr's eagle-eyed gaze caught sight of a lone German Bf-109 cutting through the chaos above. With practiced precision, Barr maneuvered his Kittyhawk to intercept. Within moments, he squeezed the trigger, unleashing a deadly hail of .50 caliber rounds that shredded through the enemy fighter's fuselage. Flames erupted as the plane spiraled downwards, marking yet another victory in Barr's relentless campaign against the Axis forces. Yet even as Barr notched another kill, his focus was unbreakable. Just ahead, a fellow squadron member's plane began spiraling out of control, its nose dipping perilously toward the sand below. With no regard for his own safety, Barr swung his aircraft around in a sharp dive, aiming to protect his wingmen from the encroaching threat. But the enemy was not so easily deterred. Two Italian Fiat G-50 fighters appeared from the sun's blinding glare, intercepting Barr's maneuver and challenging the renowned ace to a showdown. Barr didn't flinch. In a series of daring turns, he forced his Kittyhawk into a high-speed dance, dodging incoming fire while managing to line up his own shots. In a masterful display of aerial prowess, he closed in on the first Italian fighter, his machine guns roaring as he tore through its wings. The Fiat G-50 plummeted to the ground, yet Barr had no time to rest. A second Italian fighter bore down on him, determined to make him their prize. With fuel dwindling and his ammunition running low, Barr executed a last-second maneuver, positioning his Kittyhawk for an ambush. A well-placed burst from his guns shredded the second Italian fighter, sending it into a nosedive. But just as Barr began to regroup, two German Messerschmitt Bf-109s swooped down from above, their black crosses a grim reminder of the enemy's strength in numbers. In the heart-pounding dogfight that ensued, Barr's Kittyhawk took heavy fire. A burst of bullets ripped through his cockpit, and the searing pain of a wound to his shoulder jolted him, but he kept his grip on the controls. Fueled by grit and determination, he fought back, managing to blast one of the German fighters from the sky in a final, defiant act. However, with his fuel gauge nearly empty and his battered plane engulfed in flames, Barr knew the fight was over. Smoke poured from his engine, and his vision began to blur. Barr braced himself as the vast, unyielding desert below came rushing up to meet him. He clung to the hope of survival, knowing that if he could manage the impact, he might still find a way to live. But in the unforgiving heat of the North African desert, far from Allied lines and surrounded by hostile forces, he faced not only the agony of a crash but the relentless challenge of the desert itself. January 10, 1942, dawned under a scorching sun. The shattered remains of Barr's P-40 Kittyhawk lay strewn across the desert sands, a stark reminder of the brutal battle that had claimed so many lives. Miraculously, Barr had survived the crash, though his body bore the marks of a violent impact. With a bleeding shoulder and intense pain from his injuries, he crawled from the wreckage, his mind reeling with thoughts of survival in the empty, enemy-occupied wasteland. Alone and exposed under the desert sun, Barr's survival instincts kicked in. He scavenged what he could from the wreck, pulling out a small supply of water and a few scraps of food. He knew he was deep in Axis territory, with miles of barren landscape between him and the nearest Allied outpost. The desert stretched in every direction, merciless and unrelenting. For days, Barr wandered through the sands, driven by sheer willpower. His body ached and his injuries throbbed, but he forced himself onward, guided by the distant hope of rescue. During the day, he moved under the scorching sun, while at night he endured the bitter cold, his resolve hardening with every step. As each day bled into the next, Barr's physical state worsened, but his spirit remained unbroken. On January 14th, as he stumbled through the dunes, he spotted a German patrol in the distance. Weak and vulnerable, Barr considered hiding but knew that evading capture was unlikely. Instead, he gathered his strength and braced himself, knowing he would have to rely on his wits to survive what came next. As the Germans closed in, he raised his hands, feigning surrender while calculating his next move. Captured and transported to a nearby Axis encampment, Barr became a prisoner of war. He was interrogated repeatedly, facing harsh conditions and relentless questioning. But even in captivity, Barr's defiance shone through. Refusing to give up valuable information, he maintained a facade of cooperation, giving only the bare minimum while keeping his true thoughts hidden. By April 1942, Barr began plotting his escape. Studying the camp's routines and guard rotations, he pieced together a plan. On a moonless night, with the help of a few trusted prisoners, he made his move, slipping into the shadows and out of the camp's grasp. The journey ahead was treacherous, but Barr's spirit was unyielding. As weeks turned into months, Barr's reputation as a fierce and unbreakable pilot spread even among his captors. In the grim reality of the POW camp, he remained a symbol of Allied resilience, inspiring his fellow prisoners to hold on to hope. Barr became known for his acts of quiet resistance, finding ways to undermine the Axis efforts from within the prison walls. Crossing miles of hostile terrain, Barr endured the perils of the desert once more. Each step brought him closer to Allied lines, yet danger lurked at every corner. Finally, after days of evasion and hardship, he reached the edge of friendly territory. Exhausted, wounded, and weakened by his ordeal, Barr was welcomed as a hero. In the weeks that followed, Squadron Leader Andrew Nicky Barr returned to his squadron, his courage and resilience becoming the stuff of legend.
All right, so strap yourselves in, folks, because today we're diving headfirst into World War II.
Oh, this is going to be good.
You bet it is. But we're not just talking big picture history here. No, sir, we're getting up close and personal.
As close as it gets.
You got it. With one pilot story. Squadron Leader Andrew Nicky Barr.
Ah, Nicky Barr. Now, there was a character.
That's an understatement if I ever heard one. Flying with the RAF's number 3 Squadron, Australian ace, this guy was the real deal.
Not just an ace. He was known for being a real daredevil in the air.
Yeah, they called him Old Nick for a reason, right?
That's right. Skill and pure guts. By January 1942, he already had 8 confirmed kills.
8? Wow. All right, so try to imagine this. January 9th, 1942, the skies over El Alamein.
Ooh, El Alamein, a turning point in the Desert War.
Absolutely. And the air above it, absolute chaos. We're talking Allied bombers trying to hit their targets, German B-109s all over the place.
The B-109, a formidable machine, one of the Luftwaffe's best.
No kidding. And then you've got the Italians adding to the mayhem with their Fiat G50s.
Throw in the desert heat, the swirling sand, and you've got a recipe for utter confusion up there.
And right in the thick of it, our man, Nicky Barr, leading his squadron in his P-40 Kittyhawk. Can you even picture it?
That kind of air battle, it really highlights just how messy, how unpredictable those early war dogfights could be.
So many different planes, tactics, it's almost hard to keep track of.
A lot of it came down to instinct, split-second decisions. And Barr, he had a knack for it.
Oh, he did. So he takes down this BF-109, no problem.
One less to worry about.
Right. Then he sees one of his own guys in trouble, pinned down by 2 Italian Fiats.
2 against 1, never good odds.
Nope. But Barr, he just dives in, takes on both of them.
Talk about bravery under fire. It's amazing he even survived that.
That's our Nicky Barr, right. But there's only so much one pilot, even one as good as Barr, can do. Especially when 2 more Messerschmitt Bf-109s show up.
The Luftwaffe wasn't messing around.
Not at all. And by this point, Barr's already low on fuel, his plane's been hit. It's getting dicey fast.
You can practically hear the tension in the cockpit, feel the pressure mounting.
I bet. But he manages to down one of them.
Incredible, considering...
I know, right? But the plane's on fire. He's got no choice but to crash land.
And where does he come down?
Right in the heart of enemy territory. Talk about a turn of events.
Out of the frying pan and into the fire.
Exactly. Suddenly, it's not about dodging bullets anymore. It's about surviving the North African desert.
Ah, the desert. One of the most unforgiving environments on Earth.
You're telling me. Scorching sun, endless sand, the fight for every drop of water.
That kind of place, it really strips you bare. Tests you physically, mentally, like nothing else.
It makes you realize what humans are capable of enduring.
The will to survive is a powerful force. And Barr, he had it in spades.
So he pulls himself out of the wreckage. Somehow he's alive, though definitely banged up.
Banged up is putting it mildly, I'd say.
He's got some supplies from the plane, a little food, a bit of water, and that's it.
Not much to go on.
Not at all. But he starts walking. Can you imagine? Injured, alone in that vast expanse.
Every step must have been agony.
Oh, absolutely. Exhaustion, dehydration, the sheer mental strain of it all. You'd think most people would just give up.
I know I would. But Barr, he kept going. Just pure grit, I guess.
Driven by something, that's for sure. And it's that spirit, that never say die attitude that you see in those incredible survival stories.
It makes you wonder, what separates the ones who make it from the ones who don't? Is it luck? Training? Sheer willpower?
Maybe a bit of everything. But in Barr's case, luck wasn't exactly on his side. Because after days of this grueling trek on January 14th...
5 days in the desert, that's unimaginable.
It is. But on that day, he stumbles right into a German patrol. I mean, talk about bad timing, right?
In a vast open landscape like that, the odds of running into someone, slim to none. It's almost ironic.
And so what does he do? Does he try to hide, fight, run for it? What would you do?
It's a tough call. Each choice with its own set of risks.
He surrenders. Makes the call that maybe living to fight another day is better than dying alone out there.
It's a decision that probably saved his life. But instead of freedom, he ends up a prisoner of war.
Yeah, not the ending you'd hope for, but at least he was alive.
Alive, and with a whole new set of challenges ahead of him. Because those POW camps, they were designed to break you.
Designed to demoralize, dehumanize. It's hard to even fathom the psychological pressure.
Constant uncertainty, isolation, interrogation. It's amazing anyone came out of those camps intact.
But as we'll see, Nicky Barr, he had other plans. He wasn't about to let them break him, and that's where things get really interesting.
Those POW camps, they were brutal. Just the psychological aspect alone, it's hard to even imagine.
To be stripped of your freedom, your identity, constantly surrounded by reminders of your captivity.
It's enough to crush anyone's spirit. But then again, these weren't just any guys, right?
You're right. We're talking about trained soldiers, pilots, men of action.
Men who are used to taking charge, to finding a way.
So while Barr's in there, engaging in this quiet resistance, he's also observing everything.
Always thinking, planning.
Working on an escape. And it's interesting because, in a way, he's using the same skills that made him such a good pilot.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
That situational awareness, the attention to detail, being able to assess risk, make quick decisions.
All crucial in a dogfight and, well, in a POW camp, too.
Exactly. So he's not just waiting for a lucky break.
He's creating his own opportunities.
What would you say he was looking for? Any clues in the sources?
Well, it seems the most successful escapes, they often came down to the smallest details.
Makes sense. Routines, weak points in the fencing, chances to get tools or supplies.
It's about gathering information, slowly piecing together a plan.
Waiting for the right moment to strike. It takes patience.
Loads of it. And we can't forget, this is North Africa.
Right. Not some cozy European castle.
Even if you break out of the camp, you're still stuck in the middle of a war zone.
Miles of hostile territory, limited supplies, the constant fear of being recaptured.
It's like that desert survival all over again. Only this time you're being hunted.
Adds a whole new level of stress to the situation, that's for sure.
Talk about pressure. So, Barr's planning this escape. What do we actually know about how it went down?
Not a lot of specifics, I'm afraid. It happened on a moonless night, we know that.
Makes sense. Cover of darkness.
And he wasn't alone. A small group of prisoners went with him.
Really shows the kind of bonds that form in those places, huh?
To risk your life, not just for your own freedom, but for others.
That camaraderie, that shared purpose must be incredibly powerful.
Absolutely crucial, not just for the escape itself, but for everything that comes after too. But we'll get to that. For now, just think about it. Outnumbered, outgunned in a foreign land.
A long shot, to say the least.
It's almost unbelievable. But they pull it off.
We don't know exactly how, but somehow they managed to evade capture.
Must have been some story.
And eventually they make it back to Allied lines. Wounded, exhausted.
But alive. Against all odds.
He did it again. Nicky Barr just doesn't give up, does he?
It's a testament to human resilience, to hope, to determination, to overcoming what seems impossible.
Like something out of a movie. First the crash landing, then the desert, now this escape.
And it's not just luck.
No, definitely not.
It's skill, preparation, and a will to survive that most people just don't have.
So he's back on friendly soil. Imagine the celebrations, the relief.
Must have been quite a sight.
His squadron, they thought they'd lost him not once, but twice. And then there he is.
Back from the dead. Doesn't get much more dramatic than that.
But let's be real for a moment. This isn't a Hollywood ending.
No, the story doesn't just end there.
He's been through hell. Physically, mentally. How do you even begin to come back from that? Let alone go back to active duty.
It raises a lot of questions about what happens to veterans after they return from combat. The trauma, the scars, the difficulty of adapting back to a world that's moved on without them.
It's easy to focus on the heroics of the escape, but we can't forget the cost.
No, absolutely not. Even someone like Barr, he had to be carrying a lot of baggage.
And I'm sure we don't know the full extent of it.
We don't have access to his personal thoughts or medical records or anything like that. But it's safe to assume he faced his fair share of challenges.
Nightmares, flashbacks, maybe even difficulty connecting with others.
All common reactions to trauma. And it can last a lifetime.
So what did he do? Did he just hang up his flying helmet and call it a day?
Nicky Barr. Give up? Not a chance. He went right back to active duty.
Seriously, after everything.
Yep, back in the cockpit, racking up even more victories.
This guy, I swear, he went on to become one of the most decorated Australian pilots of the whole war, didn't he?
That's right. Distinguished Service Order and Bar, Distinguished Flying Cross, the whole 9 yards.
You know, most people, they'd be happy just to put their feet up after all that and never see another plane again.
But not Nicky Barr. It says a lot about his character, don't you think?
I guess so. What do you think drove him? Duty. Patriotism.
Maybe. But I also think it was something deeper. A need to prove himself, to defy the odds, to really live life on his own terms.
And maybe, in a way, to honor the guys who didn't make it back.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. Imagine being one of his squadron mates.
They thought he was gone. Twice. And then he just walks back in.
Like a ghost. Must have been incredible for morale.
Talk about a boost. Maybe even inspired some of them to try their own escapes. Who knows?
It's a powerful story, that's for sure. But it makes you wonder, how did all this affect him later on?
Yeah, after the war. Did he ever talk about it?
You know what? He did. He became a successful businessman, got married, had a family, but he didn't shy away from his past.
Really? So he didn't just bury those memories?
No, he gave interviews, even wrote about it.
Interesting. Why do you think he did that?
I think part of it was therapeutic,
To make sense of it all.
Right. But also to share those lessons he learned so they wouldn't be forgotten.
So it wasn't just about him.
No. He wanted to inspire others, to show them that you can overcome even the most incredible obstacles.
That's pretty powerful.
Speaks to the power of storytelling, doesn't it?
Yeah, how sharing our experiences, even the tough ones, can help us connect, find strength in each other.
We need those reminders sometimes that we're not alone, that hope can endure even in the darkest times.
So looking back at Nicky Barr's story, what would you say is the biggest takeaway?
I think it's the incredible resilience of the human spirit.
The ability to adapt, overcome, find meaning, even when things are at their worst.
His story, it's not just about war or survival. It's about what it means to be human, to face your fears, to dig deep and come out stronger on the other side.
It's a reminder that we all have that potential within us. No matter what life throws at us, we can not only survive, but thrive.
Exactly. Barr's story, it's a beacon of hope, a testament to the strength of the human spirit. It's a story that deserves to be told and retold for generations to come.
So next time you're facing a challenge, think of Nicky Barr.
Think of his courage.
His tenacity, his refusal to give up.
Let his story remind you that even when things seem impossible, the human spirit can triumph.
And that, my friends, is Nicky Barr's incredible story. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
A pleasure to be here.